Around the fire stood a group of figures, their faces hidden in the shadows. Kamsi felt a shiver run down her spine as she realized that these were the people the woman had brought her to meet. They were waiting for her. The woman led Kamsi to the edge of the circle and stopped. The figures around the fire turned to look at them, their eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Kamsi could feel their gaze on her, could feel the weight of their scrutiny. She wanted to run, to hide, but she knew there was no escape. Not anymore. One of the figures stepped forward, their movement slow and deliberate. As they came into the light of the fire, Kamsi could see that it was an old man, his face lined with age, his eyes sharp and piercing. He wore a long robe made of dark, rough fabric, and around his neck hung a pendant shaped like a crescent moon. "Welcome, Kamsi," the old man said, his voice deep and resonant. "We have been expecting you." Kamsi's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The old man smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "We are the Council of Shadows," he said. "Guardians of the ancient spirits, keepers of the old ways. We have been watching over this land for centuries, ensuring that the balance between the spirit world and the human world is maintained." Kamsi's mind raced. The Council of Shadows. Guardians of Spirits. It all sounded like something out of a legend, something that couldn't possibly be real. But the presence of the spirit inside her, the power that thrummed through her veins, told her that it was all too real. "Why me?" Kamsi asked, her voice trembling. "Why did the spirit choose me?" The old man's expression grew serious. "The spirits choose their vessels carefully," he said. "They see into the hearts of humans, see their strengths, their weaknesses. The spirit that chose you saw something in you, something that makes you worthy of carrying its power." "But I don't want this," Kamsi said, her voice breaking. "I never asked for this." "Few do," the old man replied, his tone understanding but firm. "But the spirits do not choose based on desire. They choose based on need. And right now, the world needs you, Kamsi." Kamsi shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't understand any of this. I just want my old life back." The old man sighed, his gaze softening. "I know this is difficult, child. But the world is changing. Dark forces are stirring, forces that seek to upset the balance between the spirit world and the human world. The spirit chose you because it believes you have the strength to face these forces, to stand against them." Kamsi's heart pounded in her chest. Dark forces. She felt like she was being drawn into something far beyond her understanding, something that was bigger and more dangerous than anything she had ever imagined. "What do you want me to do?" she asked, her voice barely audible. The old man stepped closer, his eyes locking onto hers. "You must learn to harness the power of the spirit," he said. "You must learn to control it, to use it. Only then will you be able to stand against the darkness that is coming." Kamsi stared at him, her mind reeling. Kamsi awoke to the sound of birds chirping in the distance, their melodies a stark contrast to the dark, ominous atmosphere that had filled the night before. She blinked her eyes open, feeling disoriented, as if she were waking from a dream, only this was no dream. The events of the previous night were real as the spirit that now resided within her. The clearing was bathed in the soft, golden light of early morning. The blue flames of the fire had long since died out, leaving only a faint wisp of smoke curling up into the sky. The ancient stone pillars stood tall and silent, their carved symbols seeming less ominous in the daylight. Kamsi sat up, rubbing her eyes. Her body ached from the events of the night before, her muscles sore, and her mind still heavy with the weight of everything she had learned. She glanced around the clearing and saw that the council members were already awake, moving about with a calm, practiced efficiency. They seemed unaffected by the long night, as if they were accustomed to such rituals. The old man, the leader of the council, noticed Kamsi stirring and walked over to her. "Good morning, Kamsi," he said, his voice kind. "I trust you were able to get some rest." Kamsi nodded, though in truth her sleep had been fitful, plagued by strange dreams and unsettling visions. "A little," she replied, trying to shake off the lingering sense of unease. The old man smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Today marks the beginning of your training," he said. "There is much to do and little time. The spirit within you must be tamed, its power harnessed, and controlled. This will not be easy, but it is necessary if you are to fulfill your role." Kamsi's stomach churned at the thought. She wasn't ready for this. How could she be? She had never asked for any of this, never wanted to be a vessel for some ancient spirit, never wanted to be caught up in a battle against forces she didn't understand. But she also knew she had no choice. If she didn't learn to control the spirit, it would control her, and that was a fate she couldn't accept. The council members gathered around Kamsi, forming a circle once more. The tall woman with the braided hair who had spoken to Kamsi the night before stepped forward. "My name is Nena," she said, introducing herself. "I will be your primary guide during this training. I understand this is all new to you, but you must trust in the process. The spirit within you is powerful, but it is also dangerous. If you cannot control it, it could destroy you and others." Kamsi nodded, her mouth dry. She could still feel the presence of the spirit inside her, like a dark, cold serpent waiting to strike. The memory of how it had surged within her the previous night, testing her resolve, was fresh in her mind. "Today, we will begin with the basics," Nena continued. "You must learn to connect with the spirit, to communicate with it on a deeper level. Only then will you be able to channel its power effectively." Kamsi took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "How do I do that?" she asked, her voice small. Nena smiled gently. "You must clear your mind, focus on the spirit within you. It is a part of you now, but it also has its own will. You must establish a bond with it, a partnership. Only then can you hope to control it." Kamsi wasn't sure she liked the idea of bonding with something so foreign, so terrifying. But she knew she had no choice. If she didn't learn to walk with the spirit, it would consume her from within. The other council members began to chant softly, their voices blending together in a low, melodic hum. The sound filled the clearing, resonating through the air and into Kamsi's very bones. She closed her eyes, letting the sound wash over her, feeling it pull her deeper into herself. "Focus, Kamsi," Nena's voice instructed. "Focus on the spirit. Feel its presence, its energy. Do not be afraid of it. Embrace it." Kamsi took a deep breath, closing her eyes and allowing herself to be guided by Nena's words. She reached out with her mind, seeking the presence of the spirit within her. At first, she felt nothing but the usual thrum of her own thoughts, the chatter of her mind. But as she delved deeper, she felt it, the dark, pulsing energy of the spirit. It was like touching the edge of a storm, a swirling mass of power and emotion. It was chaotic, wild, yet also strangely compelling. Kamsi could feel its anger, its frustration at being trapped inside her, but she could also sense a deep, ancient sorrow, as if the spirit had seen and endured more than any living being could comprehend. "Do not fear it," Nena's voice came again, steady and calming. "Speak to it, Kamsi. Let it know that you are not its enemy. You must earn its trust." Kamsi swallowed hard, her heart pounding. How did one speak to a spirit? She felt ridiculous even trying, but she had no other choice. Tentatively, she reached out with her mind, focusing on the spirit's presence. I'm not your enemy," she whispered in her thoughts, unsure if the spirit could even hear her. "I don't want to hurt you, and I don't want you to hurt me. We need to work together." For a moment, there was no response. The spirit's energy remained as turbulent as ever, swirling within her like a storm on the verge of breaking. But then, slowly, she felt a change. The wild energy began to come, the storm clouds parting just enough for her to sense something else, an awareness, a consciousness that was not her own. It was as if the spirit was listening, weighing her words, deciding whether or not to respond. Kamsi held her breath, waiting, hoping. Finally, she felt it, a soft, almost hesitant pulse of energy, like a nod of acknowledgement. The spirit was listening. Kamsi's heart leaped in her chest. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. She had made contact, had begun to bridge the gap between them. She could feel the spirit's power more clearly now, could sense its emotions and thoughts more distinctly. It was still a formidable force, but it was no longer completely alien to her. Good, Kamsi, Nena's voice broke through her concentration, filled with approval. You've taken the first step. The spirit is beginning to accept you. But remember, this is only the beginning. Building a bond with the spirit will take time and effort. You must be patient. Kamsi opened her eyes, blinking in the bright morning light. She felt different, as if something inside her had shifted, had aligned in a way it hadn't before. The spirit was still there, still powerful, but it no longer felt as threatening. It was still a storm, but now it was a storm she might one day learn to navigate. The other council members were watching her with expressions of quiet approval. They had felt the change, too. They had sensed the beginning of the bond between Kamsi and the spirit. Now, Nena said, her tone becoming more serious, we must begin the trials. Trials? Kamsi asked, her heart sinking. She had hoped that her small victory would buy her some time, some respite from the constant pressure. Nena nodded. The trials are designed to test your ability to control the spirit under different circumstances. They will challenge you, push you to your limits. But they are necessary if you are to learn true mastery. Kamsi swallowed hard. She didn't feel ready for any kind of trial, but she knew there was no way out. She had to do this, had to prove to herself and to the council that she could control the spirit. The first trial will test your focus and control, Nena explained. You must call upon the spirit's power and use it to manipulate the elements around you. This is a test of your connection with the spirit, of your ability to channel its energy without losing yourself in it. Kamsi's stomach twisted with nerves, but she nodded, determined to see this through. She had come this far, there was no turning back now. The council members stepped back, giving Kamsi space. Nena motioned for her to stand in the center of the clearing, where the fire had burned the night before. Close your eyes and focus on the spirit, Nena instructed. Feel its power, its energy. Let it flow through you, but do not let it consume you. You are in control. Kamsi took a deep breath, closing her eyes once more. She reached out to the spirit, feeling its presence more clearly than before. It was a strange sensation, like holding a live wire in her hand, dangerous, but also exhilarating. Now, Nena's voice came, firm and commanding, use the spirit's power to call the wind. Feel the air around you, and command it to obey. Kamsi focused, trying to do as Nena instructed. She could feel the spirit's energy within her, a wellspring of power just waiting to be tapped into. Tentatively, she reached for it, imagining the wind swirling around her, responding to her call. At first, nothing happened. The air remained still, the forest silent. But then, slowly, she felt a breeze stir, ruffling her hair and the leaves on the trees. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Kamsi concentrated harder, trying to strengthen the connection. The breeze grew stronger, whipping through the clearing, rustling the branches above. She could feel the spirit's power flowing through her, could sense its willingness to obey her commands. But then, suddenly, the wind grew wild, howling through the trees with a force that startled her. Kamsi's concentration faltered, and the spirit's energy surged, slipping out of her control. The wind became a tempest, tearing at the trees, ripping leaves and branches from their places. Kamsi, focus. Nena's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and urgent. You must regain control. Panic surged through Kamsi as she realized she was losing her grip on the spirit's power. The wind was no longer responding to her commands, it was wild, dangerous. She could feel the spirit's energy spiraling out of control, threatening to overwhelm her. Desperately, Kamsi tried to pull back, to rein in the power she had unleashed. She focused all her will on calming the storm, on regaining control. Slowly, painfully, the wind began to die down, the howling tempest fading into a gentle breeze once more. Kamsi gasped for breath, her body trembling with the effort. She had done it, she had regained control. But it had been close, too close. The spirit's power was still too wide, too unpredictable. She had much to learn, much to master. Nene stepped forward, her expression serious but not unkind. You did well, Kamsi, she said. But you must remember, the spirit's power is not something to be taken lightly. It is a force of nature, and it will not be tamed easily. You must be vigilant, always in control. Kamsi nodded, though her heart was still pounding in her chest. She had survived the first trial, but she knew there would be more to come, trials that would test her in ways she couldn't even imagine. The road ahead was long and treacherous, but she was determined to walk it, no matter what. The council members nodded in approval, their eyes filled with a mix of pride and caution. They knew the dangers Kamsi faced, but they also saw the potential within her, the potential to become something more, something powerful. As the day wore on, Kamsi continued her training, learning to harness the spirit's power in small, controlled bursts. She learned to call the wind, to command the flames, to manipulate the water and earth around her. Each trial was more difficult than the last, pushing her to her limits and beyond. But with each success, no matter how small, Kamsi grew more confident in her abilities. She was still afraid, still uncertain of what lay ahead, but she was also beginning to understand the power within her, to feel a connection with the spirit that was deeper than fear. And as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the clearing, Kamsi knew that this was only the beginning. The darkness was still out there, still growing, but she was no longer the scared, helpless girl she had once been. She was Kamsi, the vessel of an ancient spirit, and she was ready to face whatever came next. As the days passed, Kamsi's training with the Council of Shadows intensified. She learned to master her control over the spirit within her, gaining proficiency in manipulating the elements around her. Each day brought new challenges, each trial pushing her closer to her limits. But with every challenge she overcame, she felt a growing sense of empowerment, a newfound confidence in her abilities. The council members were impressed with her progress. They watched with a mixture of pride and concern as she honed her skills, knowing that the trials she faced were only a prelude to the greater battle that lay ahead. The darkness that threatened the world was drawing nearer, and time was running out. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a deep, ominous red, the old man called a meeting. The council members gathered around the fire, their faces serious, their eyes reflecting the flames. Kamsi, the old man began, his voice grave, the time has come for you to face the final trial. You have learned to control the spirit's power, but now you must test yourself against the darkness that is coming. This trial will not be easy, and it will test every ounce of strength and courage you possess. Kamsi's heart raced at his words. She had known that the final trial would be the most difficult, but the gravity of the situation was starting to sink in. The darkness they had spoken of was not just a metaphor, it was a real, tangible threat, and it was growing stronger by the day. What do I have to do? Kamsi asked, her voice trembling slightly. The old man's gaze was steady. You must confront the darkness directly. The council has sensed its presence in a nearby village. We believe that a powerful force of darkness is gathering there, feeding on the fear and despair of the people. Your task is to go there, confront this force, and protect the villagers. Kamsi's breath caught in her throat. The thought of confronting such a powerful force was terrifying, but she knew she had no choice. She had come too far to back down now. Nena, who had become a mentor and friend, stepped forward. We will accompany you to the village, she said. But the final confrontation will be yours alone. You must face the darkness, harness the spirit's power, and protect the people. The council members began to prepare for the journey, gathering supplies and making arrangements. Kamsi spent the night in anxious preparation, going over everything she had learned, trying to calm her racing thoughts. The weight of the impending confrontation pressed heavily on her shoulders, but she knew she had to be strong. As dawn broke, the group set out toward the village. The forest paths were eerily quiet, the usual sounds of wildlife absent. It was as if nature itself was holding its breath, waiting for the impending confrontation. After hours of travel, they arrived at the village. It was a small, humble place, its simple houses surrounded by fields and forest. But the atmosphere was heavy with a sense of dread. The villagers moved about with haggard expressions, their faces etched with fear. The council members set up a perimeter around the village, their presence a protective barrier against the encroaching darkness. Kamsi stood at the edge of the village, her heart pounding as she prepared herself for the confrontation. "Remember, Kamsi," Nena said softly, "you must stay focused. The darkness will try to exploit your fears, your doubts. Do not let it. You are stronger than you know." Kamsi nodded, her resolve stealing. She stepped into the heart of the village, feeling the oppressive weight of the darkness growing stronger with each step. The air was thick with a sense of unease, the villagers' fear palpable. As she walked, the darkness began to manifest. Shadows stretched and twisted, forming shapes that seemed almost alive. They swirled around her, whispering insidious words that played on her deepest fears and insecurities. Kamsi could feel her confidence waver, her strength faltering. The spirit within her stirred, a tumultuous force that seemed to react to the darkness. Kamsi closed her eyes, reaching out to the spirit, seeking its guidance and support. "I need you," she whispered to the spirit. "Help me. I can't do this alone." The spirit's presence surged within her, its energy a powerful force that began to push back against the encroaching shadows. The darkness seemed to recoil, the twisted shapes retreating as the spirit's power grew stronger. But the darkness was relentless. It surged forward again, more powerful than before, its whispers growing louder, more menacing. Kamsi could feel it trying to overwhelm her, trying to break her spirit. "Stay strong, Kamsi." Nena's voice called out from the edge of the village, filled with encouragement. "You are the vessel of the spirit. You have the strength to face this." Kamsi took a deep breath, focusing on the spirit's power within her. She could feel its energy, its ancient strength, and she knew she had to use it to protect the villagers. She raised her arms, calling upon the spirit's power to create a barrier of light that pushed back the darkness. The light from the spirit's power cut through the shadows, illuminating the village with a warm, golden glow. The darkness recoiled, its forms twisting and writhing as the light pressed against them. Kamsi could feel the struggle, the intense battle between light and dark, but she held firm, determined to protect the people she had come to help. The darkness fought back fiercely, trying to break through the barrier of light, but Kamsi's resolve was unshakable. She poured all her strength into the spirit's power, focusing on her goal, to protect the villagers, to banish the darkness once and for all. With a final surge of energy, the light expanded, pushing the darkness away from the village. The shadows dissipated, retreating into the forest, leaving behind a calm, peaceful silence. The oppressive weight that had hung over the village lifted, replaced by a sense of relief and tranquility. Kamsi collapsed to her knees, exhausted but triumphant. The spirit's power had done its job, and the darkness had been driven back. The villagers began to emerge from their homes, their faces reflecting a mix of awe and gratitude. The council members approached, their expressions a mixture of pride and relief. Nena helped Kamsi to her feet, her eyes filled with admiration. "You did it, Kamsi. You faced the darkness and protected the people. You have proven yourself." Kamsi nodded, her heart full of a mix of emotions. She was exhausted, but she also felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had faced her fears, had confronted the darkness, and had emerged victorious. As the sun set over the village, casting a warm glow across the fields, Kamsi knew that her journey was far from over. The darkness might have been pushed back, but it would return. She had proven her strength, but she also knew that there would be more challenges ahead. The council members gathered around her, their faces reflecting the respect and admiration they felt. They had seen her grow from a scared, uncertain girl into a powerful warrior, someone who had the strength to face the darkness and protect those in need. Kamsi looked out at the village, the faces of the grateful villagers reflecting in the fading light. She felt a sense of purpose, a deep understanding of her role in this world. She was no longer just a girl who had lost everything, she was a vessel of the spirit, a guardian against the darkness. As she stood with the council, ready to face whatever lay ahead, Kamsi knew that she had found her place in the world. She had faced unimaginable adversity, had confronted her fears, and had emerged stronger for it. the darkness might return, but Kamsi was ready. She had the spirit's power, the guidance of the council, and the strength of her own resolve. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with courage and determination, knowing that she had the power to protect and to fight. And as the stars began to shine in the night sky, Kamsi felt a sense of peace and resolve. She had come a long way from the girl who had lost her parents, from the girl who had been forced into a life she never wanted. She had found her purpose, her strength, and her place in the world. With the darkness driven back and the village safe, Kamsi knew that her journey was just beginning. The road ahead would be filled with challenges and trials, but she was ready to face them. She had the spirit within her, the support of the council, and the courage to see her through. As the night settled around her, Kamsi looked to the future with hope and determination. She was ready for whatever lay ahead, ready to protect and to fight, ready to face the darkness and emerge victorious. And with that, the story of Kamsi, the girl who faced unimaginable adversity and became a beacon of hope, came to a close. But her journey, her battles, and her triumphs would live on in the hearts of those she had touched, and in the stories told for generations to come.
I hope you enjoyed the tale. If so, please like the video, comment, share it with your family and friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more enchanting tales like this one. Goodbye.